Yes, owning these multiple properties, so not your primary residence, but multiple properties, and then listing them not for leases or long-term rentals, but for these short-term rentals is impacting our rental market. About 1.4% of the country's housing stock is being committed to these short-term rentals. Do you find a problem with it, Amy?
Yeah, I do. I actually have a friend who she owns an apartment, she owns a condo in Toronto, and she had purchased this many, many years ago. And she tells me stories of like whole floors that are completely like empty because, people have purchased them from out of country or whatever, and they all use them as Airbnbs, but they just sit there. And I do find this quite disturbing because we are in a very difficult situation where, a lot of people can't find affordable housing. They can't find, rent to be affordable. I was talking to my mom even just earlier today, and she was like, we're talking about getting to the situation where people are literally renting rooms, and my mom lives in Windsor. So even out there's challenges where people are are having difficulty with affordability. And I think the government really needs to start talking about how they're going to, deal with some of these instances where, we're seeing people from overseas purchasing. They have different rules out there, but we're not, putting any stringent guidelines in place. I think that something needs to be done. And again, this is something that is of high importance to many Ontarians and Canadians across the board.
Like, consider this. The report is looking at more than 235,000 unique active short-term rental listings on Airbnb and VRBO. These are the two largest hosting platforms. 235,800 listings. They could all be owned by one person, John. There are no limits.
Well, yeah, the important thing here is whenever we talk about the raw figures of what we want to build in Ontario and the urgency with which we need to build, and then you see that we have 235,000 units across Canada that would be available tomorrow if we stop doing short-term rental. And memo, there are hotels people can stay in. So these are alternatives. And I say that as a person who has stayed at VRBO and Airbnb. But at the same time, I think the important thing, Reshmi, is that real estate is not quite the same thing as buying stock in Bell Canada Enterprises. A piece of real estate is something that somebody could be living in. So I don't think that it's overreach for government to come up with means of trying to compel people to make sure that somebody's actually living in a unit that they own. And, then people will always, when I talk about this on the morning show, people will always say, well, you have no idea how horrible it is to be a landlord. There may be a lot of issues in being a landlord, but at the moment, the rental market is such a runaway on fire affair that I can't imagine too many people are having a hard time.
Yeah, it is though. I mean, it's not, but it is in that like the landlord tenancy board is just backed up in that if you think you needed help, it's like, if you called 911 and you had to wait, that would be a concern, right? So I think anyone who considers renting or listing it in short term, when you look at the complaints in the news coming from people waiting for the landlord tenancy board, you might go the other way. What do you think, Amy?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of hedging my bets whether I would mention this, but like I have a family member right now who's actually recently just been evicted during the winter, which I know is not supposed to happen. But essentially, this person was like, "I need this unit because I have a family member coming," and I was like, this is not like the person can't do this. But again, we're having these instances where, like you said, Reshmi, we're seeing that those boards are really backed up. But again, it's just, I'm very concerned about the people who are trying to, find a place to live because again, it actually affects my cousin's his ability to work. And I don't know. I find this conversation that we continue having about like affordable housing really frustrating when we have these available units and there's really no oversight or accountability in relation to these things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about something a little bit later. I saw this in the news today and I thought, if you saw Keanu Reeves walking around in Toronto, because Keanu Reeves and his band Dogstar, they're playing Lee's Palace this week. It's a sold out show. But if you saw Keanu Reeves on the streets of Toronto, which movie do you think you're in? Keanu Reeves, his career has spanned many decades and lots of different iterations. I would still go back to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. That's how old I am. John, what kind of Keanu would you see on the streets?
I have to be honest. You said, what's the first movie I think of? And it was My Own Private Idaho.
Ah!
I'm a huge admirer of Keanu Reeves. He's an extraordinarily modest guy, and almost on a monthly basis, you'll see a picture of him sitting on the subway in New York or sitting on a park bench in Los Angeles. He just seems to be a good and decent guy. And at the same time, as a musician, I always contest the idea that it's some sort of a vanity project whenever an actor is a musician. And frankly, there are quite a few actors who are very, very good musicians, and the Bacon Brothers are a great act.
The Bacon Brothers. Oh, yeah. Man, My Own Private Idaho. Yeah, Keanu Reeves has some really great performances. I still like getting into that phone booth. But then there's also, Speed, The Matrix. Amy, what comes to mind?
Oh my goodness. I mean, of course, those movies are the first ones, like Speed, The Matrix, of course, any of the John Wick movies. But again, I wouldn't want to meet his character in a John Wick movie, unless I'm on the good side there. But again, I'm going to go with being super lame because I have kids. Have you seen him in the SpongeBob movie? It was just really cute, a little cute cameo.
What?
But again, the SpongeBob movie.
No, I missed that.
Oh my gosh. He's actually, he plays a little role in the SpongeBob movie. And it's actually really funny and cute. And that's how my kids know Keanu Reeves now, because they're just like, oh yeah, that's Keanu. He's in the SpongeBob movie. But, I think I've heard the world of him. And again, if I saw him, I would not interrupt him in his private time. I might slowly sneak a photo, but people are people. He's doing great things. He's a Canadian hero. So, kudos to him, and I hope he does. He has a successful show. I think it's only this is the only Canadian show, right?
Yeah, it's the only Canadian stop on the whole tour, and I'm sure we're gonna spot him. There's smartphones everywhere now. I bet he's gonna pop up on the TTC. Where do you think we're gonna see Keanu Reeves in Toronto?
Oh, pretty
Definitely
well anywhere,
TTC.
I think. And, isn't it interesting, Reshmi, how there are certain celebrities, I mean, it doesn't get that much bigger as a career than Keanu Reeves, and he lives this really quiet existence. And then you'll have some C-list person from a sitcom nobody wants, who's always like, oh, nobody will leave me alone.
It's true. They're the ones who just walk around with their own entourage, don't they? Well, we appreciate you both. You should have your own entourage. John Moore and Amy Archibald Varley, thank you both for making time for the show. We appreciate you. And John Moore is back in the big chair tomorrow morning. John Moore, host of Moore in the Morning. Amy Archibald Varley, your pregnancy is going well, my friend?
Absolutely.
Good.
Except for the nausea.
Well, thank you for making through the last 30 minutes. Amy Archibald Varley, host of the Gritty Nurse podcast, celebrating the launch of The Wisdom of Nursing as well, a great book put together by the Gritty Nurses, Amy Archibald Varley and Sarah Fung. It's The Rush, News Talk 1010 Toronto.
News Talk 1010 Toronto. Listen on the go. Download the latest podcast from the Vashi Capello Show.
A couple of new things to tell you.
Whenever, wherever. At newstalk1010.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Celebrate the holiday season with Crave and enjoy festive favorites for everyone, like Fred Claus.
I'm having a ball. Ho, ho, ho.
The Family Man.
Come on, Dad, get up. It's Christmas.
Love Actually.
Good King Wenceslas looked out.
Four Christmases. And Will Ferrell in the hilarious family classic, Elf.
Someone need a hug.
Nutcracker.
Stream now on Crave. Plan starting at $9.99 a month. Subscribe now at crave.ca.
Alpine News Network is here live with one of our superheroes.
People often ask me how fast I am. Oh, 1 sec. I just went to Bali and back. I'm also fast when it comes to helping people. Like when I helped Bill. His company vehicles were being serviced, and I was able to help him with a business loan. He got the transport trucks they needed, and I got to honk the horn. All of them.
Own your home? Need a loan? Alpine Credits can help.
Alpine Credits, where homeowners get approved. Just for license 12616.
This is News Talk 1010. CFRB AM, Toronto, a division of Bell.